Hello and welcome to the basement entry. You know, everything that's in the power shed used to be on this wall here, and I used to have to stand on an old wooden it was a step that was rotted and stuff. Neighbor finally threw out a swimming pool ladder, and it's aluminum, perfect height and fit for this. But anyway, my fuse box used to be down in the basement, and it's kind of moist down there. I just moved it up a couple years ago. The house is all 12 volts, but it used to be, on the grid. So I got this battery last year. I had this credit card deal, it gave me $200, and I thought, what the heck, I'll buy a battery with it. But this fuse box used to be down in the basement, and the basement fills with water, and that's because bedrock goes up just behind my house, and any water is trapped. So there was something about standing in water and flipping switches and working on electrical things that I just didn't like. And the other thing, the humidity would often screw up the breakers. You'd have to flip them a couple times because they'd get a little bit of corrosion on them when you came back for a new season. But the water problem is what I'm talking about here. And I have this little breaker here that's just right here. That's for the pump. And I just got this little timer. For years I thought, I'm smarter than this. And I would turn the thing on. And I only need to turn it on for about 4 or 5 minutes. And once it starts pumping, it goes down to a lower point. And so it's an automatic siphon. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd wake up and think I was hearing angels singing, and it's the pump gurgling. It's still on, left it running. It doesn't draw too much current when, natural gravity is forcing the water through, but I decided I'd finally put a timer on it. So this is what I have. Cheap little timer. It turns on, tells you what mode it's in, and then it does a countdown. And it's really kind of nice, but that's a crappy timer. I do not recommend anyone buying this. You'll see it's a 431. I got this off AliExpress. They're cheap. And it's nice because it has a case. But one of the problems is there's an LED for the relay, and you can't see that through the case. So if you buy one of these, and you're going to have to play around a while to try and get it to work right, because the instructions are pretty poor. You can't see the LED. Even looking through the side holes, you can't detect whether it's on or off because the LED display is so bright. But the main problem is it's got a voltage regulator in it, and it's specified at 6 to 30 volts you can operate this at. And at 12 volts, this voltage regulator you can't even touch. And well, it'll get through the warranty period, but long term, if you're going to use one of these, put a resistor in front of it, because they'll operate with 6 volts. That's enough for the regulator. The relay in it is actually 5 volts. They sell this as a USB, and it didn't come with a USB connector. There's a place for it. And I thought, well, hell, I get this one, wide range, but it just draws, 5 volt relay draws too much. That regulator gets stinking hot just from the display, and this display will turn off after a couple minutes, and I guess that's what they're hoping for. But you can force it on, and if you have a long time with the relay, this is going to get hot, it's going to fail. But the other problem is to put the USB plug in, they had to make traces really tiny near the relay, and the problem is it's nowhere near UL spacing. This is totally unsafe to use on 120 volts. I'm just using it on 12. But what I'm going to replace it with is I have this board here, and I really like it. It's got 2 FETs on it in parallel, and these are actually 40 amp FETs, and they state this is being able to handle 15 amps without cooling. And that's right. Now you'd think like with a 40 amp FET, you ought to be able to, you know, one would handle it for most applications. But they're operating this right at the edge of the gate, voltage turn on. You know, so it's a 5 volt system. So if you have 4.5 volts, that's just about turning a FET on. So, you know, 2 of them makes it pretty good. So this isn't gonna draw any extra current. That regulator does get a little hot when the display is on, but like I say, we're gonna turn that off. Behind I put a little diode there because I'm driving a motor, just to be on the safe side. And the input on the left is isolated through an opto isolator. You can see it just under the display. And there's a little shorting bar in back that you can solder over and make it so it'll operate off the same supply. But I can connect the input right to the power, and so when I flip the switch, it runs. So it's on a little board. It's going to sit on my inverter that's in this box. I got the little window there. So yeah, that's what we're doing. As you can see, it's counting down. This will do seconds, minutes, hours. It's really useful, and you can cycle things, you know, so you can turn on for so long, off for so long. So if I wanted to start this pump, you know, twice a day, I could do that and just leave it on. But yeah, it cleaned up nicely. I'll tell you, that other panel was a mess, and I was sitting in water. So that's what we're doing at the shed. I'll go into some further detail with these timers later. I'll give some instructions on using them that you can read. But having this little 50 amp hour battery, this is in parallel with my lead acid battery, believe it or not. And this is the house battery, and it's isolated with a low voltage Schottky diode, so that drops down the voltage just enough so that it's appropriate for the battery. And this battery will not supply the refrigerator, but the main lead acid battery charges this. So that's it from the shed, or whatever you want to call this place. It's a shack. It's a teardown, but I love it.